The dominoes from Trump's G20 boycott are starting to fall. Today we're unpacking why Argentina's president has suddenly pulled out of next week's summit, how Dion George's sudden removal has sparked unexpected controversy, and Vodacom's official Starlink deal that isn't as good as it sounds. Plus, in the Wildcard, the Cape Town surfer who paddled across the Atlantic. My friends, if you are enjoying the show, be sure to like and subscribe. And now, without further ado, let's get into it. Argentina's president has pulled out of the G20 summit. And while that isn't unusual on its own, the timing is interesting. You see, Javier Milei was expected to be in Johannesburg next week, but early this week, his office informed Argentine media that he won't be making the trip after all. Instead, Argentina will send its foreign minister and its G20 Sherpa to represent the country. Now, on paper, that kind of switch isn't a crisis. Heads of state miss G20 summits fairly often. Xi Jinping missed New Delhi in 2024, Putin has skipped multiple, and several leaders sat out of the Rome summit in 2021. The forum is designed to keep running even when seats around the table change. Now, what's different this time is what happened first. You see, Milei's decision comes just days after Donald Trump announced that the United States would boycott the summit entirely. Not just skip, but send no officials at all. And that level of withdrawal is something that the G20 simply hasn't seen before. Even in the Saudi-hosted summit in 2020, where human rights groups and dozens of lawmakers called for boycotts, every member still attended in some official capacity. The same happened during the tensions around Russia's participation after the Ukraine war. As for Argentina, there's no official reason for Milei's change of plans. But as you can imagine, when the US shifts course this sharply, other governments often have to weigh the benefits of politically aligning with the world's biggest economy. And with the summit just over a week away, the real question now is whether this stops at 2 or if more leaders decide to step back before the doors open. President Ramaphosa has officially removed Dion George as Environment Minister, but depending on who you ask, the reasoning is either straightforward or politically explosive. You see, according to the DA, this was a simple performance issue. Party insiders told Business Day that George ignored binding cabinet decisions, clashed with colleagues, and created a work environment so hostile that long-serving staff reportedly couldn't cope. CNA's requested his removal last week, and Ramaphosa signed off almost immediately. But that version is being sharply contested by conservation groups who argue that George was being pushed out because he took on one of South Africa's most entrenched industries, captive lion breeding and the lion bone trade. You see, since taking office, he froze new permits, cut export quota to zero, enforced sardine fishing limits, and backed the elephant heritage strategy, moves that infuriated breeders and sparked litigation. Daily Maverick also reported that his firing comes just weeks before major wildlife negotiations, raising fears of policy reversal. The timing adds another layer. George is currently in Brazil representing South Africa at COP30. And so back home, our country has a new minister, a divided narrative, and a debate that is far from settled. Vodacom has just signed one of its most significant network deals in years, a sweeping partnership with Starlink to bring high-speed satellite internet to businesses and rural communities across Africa. Announced just yesterday, the agreement will let Vodacom integrate Starlink's 10,000-strong satellite fleet into its network, boosting coverage in places where fiber and towers simply can't reach. Now, for millions across the continent, this is a major win. Vodacom will also be allowed to resell Starlink's equipment to enterprises in licensed markets, creating products like, and I quote, 100% unbreakable internet and pay-as-you-use backup connections. Schools, clinics, and remote towns in countries like Mozambique, Kenya, DRC, and Lesotho are the first in line for the upgrade. But so here's the catch. South Africa is not one of those markets. Starlink still can't operate locally because it doesn't meet the 30% black ownership requirements in our telecom laws. And while Starlink has offered to invest billions through equity equivalent programs instead, government says that the policy won't be ready before 2026. So yeah, the partnership is real, the tech is ready, but for South Africa, Starlink is still stuck in orbit. And before we cruise on to our Bagel Bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, South Africa could see a ratings upgrade from S&P tomorrow and a 25 basis point rate cut next week, after Treasury and the Reserve Bank jointly committed to a new 3% inflation target. Treasury has set aside more than 8 billion rand to fix two of Transnet's most important rail corridors, the iron ore line to Saldanha and the main route to Durban, to help get freight moving again with private investment alongside. And the finance minister says that government is not removing medical tax credits. You know, the small monthly tax break that people get from being on medical aid. He warned that taking it away now would punish not just the middle class, but will offer no replacement plan for the NHR. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. This is the last one of the work week. Let's end it with the W. Let's see what you got. The question is, which Scandinavian country is known as the land of 1,000 lakes? Is it A, Norway, B, Finland, or C, Sweden? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our Wildcard section. You know, for most people, a stand-up paddleboard is something you take out on a Sunday. Maybe around Muizenberg, maybe Clifton if you're feeling fancy. But there's always one South African who looks at it and thinks, you know, what if I just kept going across the Atlantic? Now that guy was Chris Burtish, a big wave surfer from Cape Town who in 2017 became the first person in history to cross the Atlantic Ocean on a stand-up paddleboard. He launched from Morocco, paddled for 93 days straight, and ended in Antigua over 7,000 kilometers later, in a custom board called an MP Fish, completed with solar panels and a tiny cabin the size of a coffin. He faced storms, sharks, and nights so dark he could only hear the waves crashing around him. But he made it, raising millions for Operation Smile and the Lunchbox Fund along the way. And if you ever want the full story, he actually wrote a book about it called All In. But either way, it is proof that, once again, if there's a record out there, a South African will eventually find a way to try and break it. And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is Finland. They call it the land of 1,000 lakes, but honestly, it's underselling it. Finland has well over 180,000 lakes, mostly carved out from glaciers during the last ice age. And so just for context, if you jumped into a different Finnish lake every single day, it would take you nearly 5 centuries to get through all of them. And my friends, that's it for today's show, and that is it for the work week. Thanks so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching the show and you enjoyed it, please can I ask that you like and subscribe so you never miss the stories that matter. Either way, guys, I hope you have a cracker Friday, a fantastic weekend, go Bokke, and I'll catch you all same time on Sunday evening for the next round of the good stuff. God bless.